Let's talk about another name taken in the third round, one that is in another crowded situation, just like Dylan. It's Antonio Gibson. He was kind of a running back wide receiver hybrid coming out of Memphis. He was taken at the 302 spot by the Washington Redskins. Is this a name that you're looking for in any drafts?
No, he's probably not on my fantasy radar this season. It's funny because he is a running back wide receiver hybrid. I remember I was watching the draft and they called his name, and Goodell actually announced him as one position, and the graphic on the screen had him at another position. And then his highlight tape, you're like, is this guy a receiver? Is he a running back? It was going back and forth. So he's a Cordell Patterson type player. I don't see immediate fantasy value for him in Washington, but I certainly like the pick for the Redskins. They're depleted on the offensive side of the ball. Their running back situation is actually really tough. It's Adrian Peterson, Peyton Barber, Derrius Guice. So I could see this guy getting thrown in the mix as a utility player and maybe making some plays. They need any kind of dynamic players they can get. At the receiver spot, they've got McLaurin, who obviously we've talked about before is a total gem, and we think he's an incredibly talented guy. But then behind that, they've got Steven Sims and Kelvin Harmon, who were both rookies last season. So I think Gibson gets in the mix, and there's going to be times on Sundays this year where you're following your Gamecast or you're on Red Zone or whatever, and you're just like, Antonio Gibson, 84-yard touchdown run. And you're just like, who the crap is this guy? And then you're like, oh, yeah, he's that guy out of Memphis. So I'm not really interested in anyone in that backfield. None of the guys I just mentioned, AP, Peyton Barber, Guice, not touching them with a 10-foot pole. Probably not touching Gibson in fantasy until further notice, but I actually like it for Haskins. Anything that he can do to, like, have a nice, short, easy completion and someone else can do the work to take it to the house, it's better for the Redskins. So maybe in Dynasty it makes Haskins a little bit more interesting. Maybe he has some stream ability in 2020. But Gibson himself, unfortunately, probably not super interested this year.
Best case scenario I see for Gibson is him taking over that Chris Thompson role. That's really, we talk about his wide receiver chops.
That would be a great situation for him. Yep.
Yeah, I think that's like literally his absolute maximum peak that he could ever be at, and I think that's a stretch to even put him there. Maybe you keep an eye on him if he's in waivers and redraft. I really want to hear Mike Liu, good friend of the show, at MikeMeUpP on Twitter. He loves Gibson. He calls this guy, he gives him the nickname Da God, and I'm really curious why. Like, I want, Mike, if you're listening to this, I really want an explanation. Maybe we'll go through it next time you're on the show here. But I'd love to understand that a little bit better.
I'd love to hear it.
Maybe he believes in that Chris Thompson role, that pass-catching role there in Washington, but I'm not high on Gibson a ton.
Hey, Chris Thompson certainly has showed some upside. Maybe not this past season, but there were weeks there, the previous seasons before that, where Chris Thompson, you plug him in as your RB2 and you're set because you know you're getting 8 catches for 80 yards as a baseline.